So we're officially live. Thank you for joining. This is Paul Barringer. He's the nominee for North Carolina's 13th congressional district. Um, would you mind telling us first, like what your background is and why you decided to start running for Congress? Why would you do that? Why would you want to enter Congress at this point?
Good question. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that a lot. My name is Paul Barringer, and I live in Lee County, North Carolina. I live on a farm, same farm I grew up on. I'm a lawyer and tree farmer by background, and I'm running for Congress because I just couldn't take the news one more day, and I felt like I had to step up.
You and me all. It's a stressful time to be an American. Who I think that there's a lot of people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, um, annoyed with the system. People just feel that don't really want to identify with anyone, just doesn't like how things are working, that are just tired of seeing the infighting. They're tired of seeing the extremism on both sides. Obviously, um, the extremism on one side's in charge of the party rather than just being opposed to the Democratic Party, which has some insurgents that are trying to take over, but they're not currently in charge, opposed to, unfortunately, the GOP, which seems to have changed quite a bit in the last decade.
For
Um,
sure.
so you're running in North Carolina's 13th, and this is, I believe, Brad Knott's district. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
So what is like the because I believe if I remember correctly, this is a district that um your opponent won by 16 points 2 years ago. What what is the strategy to flip this district? I think that a lot of districts are in a lot on a big are in play because of the national environment and the nature of our candidates like you. But why do you think that you can win this district?
Sure. It's a great question. And when I got into this, I'll tell you, a lot of people said, well, bless your heart, Paul. It's really nice you're trying because you know what bless your heart means when you're down south. It basically means you ain't too smart. So I get it, right? It's an R+8 district, but look, there's a lot of factors here that make things different. One is just the national environment where we've seen erosion in the president's support. So there's 7 districts in North Carolina where the president won last time, and in some cases by very wide margins. And in 7 of the 9 Republican districts, his approval rating is now underwater. And of the of all those districts where the president's approval rating is underwater, this is the one where his approval rating is underwater by the most,
Really? Wow.
by 12 points. So I think that gives an opportunity. The second thing is from an incumbent standpoint, the reason incumbency has strength is that the incumbent has name recognition and has established constituent service activity and so forth. And that is just given the fact that this is the first term incumbent and the national environment, that's not been the case so far. As far as we could tell, the incumbent hasn't done an in person event in the district open to the public since he got elected 18 months ago. I just want to say that again because it's kind of intense, right? The incumbent, as far as we can tell, hasn't done an in person event open to the public in the last 18 months since he got elected. So
That's
we've
wow.
done we're in the process of doing town halls in every town, county in the district before the end of the quarter. We've done 7 of 8 now. We'll hit the last one early next week before Q2 ends, and we'll come back and do the same thing in the third quarter. So we're getting out there and meeting people, shaking hands, and like talking to as many people as we can. And I think there's an appetite for change.
Yes.
There's appetite for moderation, civility, and working together. And that's what we're trying to offer. And I think it puts us in a position to flip this district in November, especially since our polling shows that very few people know who the incumbent is. Like 40+% of people have never heard of
Well,
him.
that's what happens when you don't actually show up in your district. People won't
Yeah,
know who
you
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 are.
think. Yeah, that's exactly right. You think so.
Um, I think that like he's probably taking the advice of his fellow North Carolina Republican Congressman, Richard Hudson, a few districts over,
Could be, yeah.
who told everyone not to do town halls last year. So he's taking the advice of that clearly.
Yeah,
Prior to that also, but definitely after.
sure.
It just feels like a not even like it's something that you would think that people would not promote like, that they would, like, try to at least, like, appear that they care about their constituents more than just, once in a while, like, doing a town hall, answer some questions, but it's become more common to see, members of Congress to, like, especially if they think that they're in a safe district or a strong district that leans towards their party. "Oh, well, I don't really need to. Once I get past the primary, I don't really need to do much." But I think that people are kind of getting tired of that. I think that whether we like the candidates or not, there's definitely some people across the country that are winning because they feel that the incumbents, sometimes in the center, sometimes in the extremes, they think you're not showing up for our district, and that leads to people just being like, "I'm gonna anyone's better than this," and sometimes they pick an extreme, person like they have in, places like New York City and California, and sometimes they get rid of people that are just not doing a good job, like it happened in North Carolina, I believe, with, one of the state legislature leaders on the Republican side. He lost
Yeah.
reelection.
Yep.
It's like, there's an anti-incumbent sentiment on both sides of the aisle right now,
That's true.
and that can be seen as a good thing or a bad thing, but either way, it shows that, like, the incumbents need to do better to avoid losing or to avoid extreme ends of the spectrum from taking over those individual districts and states.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so
The
obviously, like,
founders Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, like, obviously, like, the main issues of the election nationwide are pretty much the same everywhere, like affordability, um, but, like, I was wondering what the specific issues of North Carolina's 13th are that might be, like, different or might be seen as, like, a different tack than you might see elsewhere in the country.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things I'll say. One is just that the founders set up a system that where there are three branches of government, each of which would act as a check on the other two. And fortunately, what we have right now with the Republican Congress is Congress, which really acts as a rubber stamp for the president. And that's an issue that I think is somewhat technical, but also people are very aware of it. And I think there is frustration with that because we need to have folks who are representing their districts who are willing to think independently about the specific issues and needs that are facing those districts and represent those districts. So, for example, the big, beautiful bill that was passed last summer changed the eligibility requirements for Medicaid, and
Yes.
it created new work requirements, but really what it did was created new paperwork requirements. Uh, it's just essentially new administrative bureaucracy and hurdles for folks to meet in order to maintain their coverage. So that they did that to save $900 billion that they used to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest people. But the point is that that's what the president and the Republican leadership wanted, but there was really no representation for this district because 30,000 people in this district will likely lose coverage as a result of that. So, ditto for the things that they did around cutting SNAP benefits, where many people in this district rely on food stamps and yet at those SNAP benefits, and yet the our representative did not hear the concerns and needs of the constituents, but rather just directed from the party bosses and the president. So we need representation that will be independent and look out for the district needs as opposed to just doing what the party bosses and the president tells them to do.
Yeah, I think that that's, like, definitely an issue. I think that what's interesting is, like, the Trump and, um, the Republican Party have run on for years, and definitely 2024 about, like, "We're anti-bureaucracy, we're gonna drain the swamp, we're gonna do all these things, and we're going to protect the little guy," which was always, to me, kind of laughable, just looking back on how they've always handled, policy, but
Yeah.
that's what they said they were gonna do, and then they've added more bureaucracy to things that everyday people needed to handle, like you said, Medicaid, SNAP, and these basic, like, programs that, like, help the little guy, which is most Americans. Most Americans are not, part of the 1%. That's why the 1%, and
Yeah.
most Americans, um, are not even, like, they're struggling to get by. It's not even like they're, like, they can somewhat afford this, which makes it more uncomfortable. It's like they can't afford what's the policies of the Trump administration enabled by the Republican majorities. And I think that what we're seeing across the country is that people want it's not that necessarily the Democratic Party is like everyone's like, "Yay, let's elect Democrats,"
You know,
necessarily.
sure.
It's actually the exact opposite. They're like, "But we know that these people can't do this right now. They're not checking the president on these things. We need to check." And I think that obviously the goal is to get the Democratic Party back to some sort of, like, thing where they're not unpopular as, a toe fungus is what the latest polls said that we're more unpopular than toe fungus, which I
Is
don't
that
think is a
true? Wow, I didn't hear that. That's
not a
too bad.
that's not a good stat to be, to have, and I think that, like, the goal is to, like, then
Who's in favor of toe fungus? I don't even understand, like, how could they, 'cause, like, you would think
I want to, like I think that says more about, the Democratic Party than it does about toe fungus approval ratings, but I think that
right.
it's certainly an interesting stat. But I think that obviously the goal is to try to put a new types of Democrats that don't respond to the extremes and actually can get stuff done across the ideological spectrum, depending on where you are in the country. But that no matter where you are in the country, you care about results and you care about
Yeah.
delivering for the working people. And I think that then we can improve the standing of the party. But I think that what matters more right now is improving the standard of the American people before we focus on the party politics of it.
Mhm.
Right now we're being given a little bit of a we'll give you a chance because we don't trust these people, so we trust you a slight bit more, and we're just gonna because we have no other choice. We're putting you in office. Don't don't screw it up. And so I was
Yeah.
wondering, obviously this is gonna be a district that is not gonna be it's gonna be an uphill climb, as you said. Um, and I'm sure while Brad might not be in the district, I'm sure he's gonna try to tie you to like every crazy Democrat out there saying crazy things on the internet or in Congress. And I was wondering how you're going to or how you have responded to these types of attacks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna say all sorts of stuff. One thing I'll say about me is I used to be a Republican, and a liberal Republican, but a Republican nonetheless. I mean, I believe that if Republicans were running right now on a, and if we're the party of limited government, fiscal responsibility, we pay our bills, but nobody wants to pay more taxes than they have to, and individual liberty, they wouldn't have to engage in electoral shenanigans to win. But that's not what they stand for right now. Even the free market, when you think about the fact that the president has extorted shares in private companies for the U.S. government, and it,
Yeah.
in some respects, it appears, like who knows how the money's all tracked. We don't have a free market in under the current administration in the same way that I think we've seen with some prior Republicans. So this is not the Republican Party of 40 or 50 years ago. Um, it's more about crony capitalism than the free market. So I think people are dissatisfied with that. They are disgusted with the corruption, and there's so much corruption, whether it's the slush fund or the real estate deals or the crypto deals or the stock trading. People are fed up. We did a town hall last night, and I asked, how many of y'all think we need to have more honesty in politics? And everybody raised their hand. So um, we I think it creates opportunities because people are so disgusted with what's happening, and we just have to continue to build on that and to make progress. And I think that we will down the stretch. And I think I'm not sure. What was your question? Because I think I forgot your question
I
when I
my
was
question
answering.
was kinda like, how are you gonna respond, like, to these attacks of, like
Oh, right.
to the
Yeah, I think
like, some
I'm sure
some
they were.
extreme, like, Democrat, like a DSA type person, which I'm sure they'll try to tie you to because that's their only strategy right now since they can't run on their own record.
Exactly. I mean, look, we have to have resources to be competitive in the general election to get our message out, and we're raising money, so we have the capacity to do that. And um, we'll continue to have a positive message about what we believe, and uh, they can try to tie me to whatever, but I don't have. There's not anything of substance that they can point there because I don't have that record of being
Yeah.
tied to uh, you know, like particular figures that they would say are damaging or would be damaging to me. I'm sure they'll keep making that point, but we're gonna run on the message that we have, which is that the current representation isn't showing up for the district. They're voting against policies that are supportive of the district, whether it's healthcare or food stamps or funding for initiatives that help in the economic development initiatives that help in the area, science funding and so forth. And also, they're cutting healthcare for people. Whereas I've worked in healthcare for a long time. I'll be a voice for people's healthcare. And
Yeah.
fundamentally, we needed a Congress per the founders' direction and vision. We need three branches of government, each of
Yeah.
which is capable of functioning independently. And until we have more Democrats in Congress, that's not going to be the case. So all of these are the points that I'll stress. And I think the other thing about these House elections is that they can be about the person too, and not so much about the party. And we'll continue to make that point that, look, I'm local. I live in the district, whereas the incumbent does not. And my family's been here for a long time, and I'm rural. So all these things, I think, I'm in the community, and will continue to be in the community, listening and responding to people's concerns.
Plus, I also think that one thing that helps you is that not this is not attacking other state party chairs in other states, but I do think that sometimes there's ideological there's ideological constraints put on by the state chair. Thankfully, you guys in North Carolina have an amazing state party chair in Anderson Clayton, and
Yeah,
she kind of allows people to have the views that they need to have in their the views that they have in their districts. They allow them to be themselves. You're allowed to run like how you want to run. And other people in North Carolina can run how they want to run or need to run or whatever it might be.
right.
And that is a lot, and you don't get like pushback from the state party chair like you might in other states where it's like, this is what the Democrats believe, so this is what you have to believe. There's no pushing on that, so I think that that's very helpful also. And yeah, I think you guys just have an amazing state party chair. I had the same discussion with Richard Ojeda a few months ago when I interviewed him,
Oh,
and
great.
so I think that it's just you guys she's just great. And I was
Yeah.
wondering, um, to kind of before we get into the policy errors, like you mentioned that like we need people that are independent of the party leadership. I was wondering in terms of party leadership, there's a lot of debate. It's kind of inside baseball stuff, but like um, a lot of people are asking like, would you support like the current leadership structure of like Hakeem Jeffries as the next speaker if you were to be elected?
Um, I mean, I think that I wouldn't see any reason why I wouldn't, um, if that aligns with what I need to do to support my constituents in this district and provide adequate representation for them. So, assuming that that leadership aligns with the priorities that I think are important, which are Congress taking back the mantle around taxing and spending, as opposed to delegating authority to the president with tariffs, Congress taking back the authority over the ability to commit resources and troops to war, as opposed to just giving that to the president, and then being a vote for people's health care and so forth. I mean, if the leadership aligns with the things that I feel like are important for the district and that aligns with what's been stressed as a priority from the people that have elected me, and that I think also aligns maybe with the needs and wishes of the people who haven't elected me, because I want to represent them too, then I can support whoever that may be in terms of the party leadership.
Makes sense. I was so one of the major issues that's currently going on, and it's a little unclear exactly whether or not the war is going on or it's not going on. It depends on the day, depends on the hour, it depends on tweets, it depends on whatever it might be.
Sure.
Um, as assuming that the ceasefire is not actually in place, because I think that that's more likely to be the case at this point than not,
Well, they
given
shot some rockets yesterday. I mean, but
yeah, well,
today
apparently, Trump sent out a tweet today that apparently Iran violated the ceasefire, even though we've sent, missiles there, like 4 times since the ceasefire was announced. Somehow
okay.
Iran did it also. I don't know. I don't think they actually ever agreed to a ceasefire, so I think there was some partisan games played with that, but I was wondering, like, obviously, foreign policy has become a big part of, the election, both in Democratic primary and also in a general election, big issue.
Uh-huh.
What is, like, your the policy that you have regarding the different foreign policies to specifics explicitly in the Middle East?
Um, so I don't think we should have gone to war without congressional authorization. I believe that the war was ill planned and ill conceived. and it committed us to and created problems that we didn't need to create. And I believe that what they are likely to get from the current process will be less favorable than the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was negotiated 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I also think that when you just look about at you know, the ability of people to negotiate, I know that the regime in Iran has killed a lot of its people, and there's a lot that's bad there. But I mean, they are human beings, right? So if you take someone like the current head of the regime in Iran, whose father, wife, and children were all killed by American bombs, and you think, okay, are we going to be able to negotiate with this person? It's if you just sort of step back and think about people as human beings, it's not going to be easy to build constructive dialogue with that person. So what they did 10 or 11 years ago with the JCPOE seems to be vastly better than anything they're going to arrive at in the current process, which seems more likely to get us back to a little bit worse than where we were without any assurance of Iran not developing a nuclear weapon. And also, the Republicans went apoplectic about the JCPOA because of the potential release of $1.7 billion in funds,
Yeah.
whereas they're talking about a reconstruction fund for $300 billion
Yeah.
with no sense about how it's going to be funded. And the other thing is that the president or the vice president said early in the week that that the Iran had agreed to allow inspectors back on site, and then Iran said Tuesday that no, we haven't. Right. So, and yet
It's a worse
they
deal than the thing is, like, people can have the, qualms with the JCPOA and everything,
sure,
and, like, any deal, especially with a, um, terrorist proxy regime like, Iran, there are issues of trust and there are issues of
sure.
how do you, enforce said mechanisms. But looking at the deal we have now, 1, Iran knows something they didn't know 10 to 11 years ago, which is they can control gas prices and pretty much get whatever deal they want. They didn't know that
Yeah.
prior to this war starting a couple months ago. They also now have, assuming this deal goes through without any, issues, they're gonna have a lot more money given to them somehow through some mechanism that's gonna allow them to actually pay for, nuclear, capabilities with that money in theory. Because what's gonna stop them? Um,
Well, it's so true. And when you think about Ukraine, they gave up the capacity to have a nuclear weapon in exchange for security guarantees, which have turned out to be basically worthless, right?
yeah.
So, whereas North Korea persisted in developing nuclear weapons, and now people have to tiptoe around them. So, I mean, honestly, there's a strong incentive for countries to become members of the nuclear club because they know that they can persist because everyone's afraid of them if they have
Well,
that. But they also know,
especially with
yeah,
Iran, because unfortunately with Iran, opposed to North Korea, there's a much bigger, emphasis on martyrdom, so they don't really the North Korea, they might make a decision that's a little bit more informed on, like, "Okay, I don't necessarily wanna die." In Iran, the government doesn't care about whether or not, and that's why it was going to war with Iran was never a good idea. Because, like, the thing is, we value human life. The Iranian government clearly doesn't, because they murdered hundreds of thousands of protesters because they oppose the regime. And so I think that when one country supports, like, human life and the other country doesn't, they're always going to have the upper hand in terms of, like, getting them to be willing to surrender. Because typically when you're fighting a country, they surrender when enough of their people suffer. But if that's not a bad thing
they
for
don't
them,
care about the suffering of their own people.
and
And
so
when
the
you
thing,
think about what the president said early in the year about, "Oh, we're coming to help, the people after the
and then he
murder of
waited 3
the."
months.
Yeah, and then he didn't. I mean, it's very unfortunate because ultimately it has the impact of the United States having no credibility on the world stage.
Well,
Our
the
word
thing is,
means nothing. We
I don't think that
stand
a
for nothing.
war was smart at any time, but if he really wanted to do that, which he obviously does and did, I don't understand why he wouldn't have gone in when he said he like, help was on the way. Because I think that because his goal, whether or not he admits it now, was to have regime change, but regime change through, like, a people-powered movement, which is what he said he wanted when he first launched the war back a few months ago, would only been doable when the protesters, well, 1, were still alive, and 2, they were actually protesting in the streets. By the time that we had entered the war, in connection with, our ally in Israel, it was a situation where the protesters had been killed, and the protesters kinda stopped. So, like, the momentum that they had was gone, and then therefore they just, like, they killed the leader of the country, which, sure, awful human being, like, no one's crying over his death, but also, like, it doesn't like, you're replacing one awful human being with the son of the awful human being who's now gonna feel like, "Well, you killed my father and you killed my family, and I already don't like America, so why should I negotiate with you, and why would I not kill more of you people that are here?" And we've seen 13 American citizens that we know of murdered for a war that we're in a worse position than we were prior to the war starting. And I think that I don't the thing is we have to take a deal because you can't have this war go on forever, and you also can't put troops on the ground. But the thing is, you're always gonna get a worse deal than the JCPOA when you have the fact that they have the leverage of the Strait of Hormuz. And that was always once they had that, they're gonna force a deal that's gonna be incredibly favorable to them compared to Trump, especially since they know that Trump will kind of cave if it means politically bad news and a bad news week for him. And now I don't think it's going to matter because the gas prices are not going down, even if the war actually to end tomorrow. It'll take at least 6 to 8 months for the gas prices to rebound, assuming other things don't happen. So I think that the political map is set in terms of at least the effects of the war. And the question is really now, like, he's just the one thing that Republicans have always kind of been favored on is foreign policy, and now they're kind of losing that because they've handled this, war terribly, and that was one of the chief things of this, MAGA movement. No more wars, no more foreign entanglements,
Sure.
um, and America first, and there's nothing America first about going into another country, and we weren't even trying to get oil this time. We were just trying to see what we could do. And that's like it's like there's no benefit whatsoever in any form of fashion, and 13 people died, and gas prices are through the roof,
We spent
no
hundreds of billions of dollars.
and no one trusts and, like, our allies think that we're silly, our enemies think that we're silly, and no one really trusts us, and then he attacked UK for, like, not joining the war that they were consulted on before, and the thing is and then he took away troops from, uh, Europe to, like, fight this war, and it was just an entire mess of foreign policy and just, like, basic competence, which if you look at Trump and Hegseth and the rest of the crew, and unfortunately, people like Marco Rubio, who was trusted prior to becoming Secretary of State, but he's kind of appears to have folded on a lot of these things, um, probably for his future ambitions, in the Republican Party, and it's just, like, deeply frustrating to see. But another issue that obviously people care about is, like you mentioned, healthcare, and there's obviously a huge debate about what exactly the solution to affordable healthcare is across the ideological spectrum. What is your view on how we make healthcare affordable and fix the healthcare crisis that was we had prior to Trump, but Trump's obviously made worse?
Well, I mean, there's the current administration has made the problems worse for sure, but there have been longstanding issues with the affordability of healthcare, and we've seen tremendous growth in the both percentage as a kind of a percentage of national GDP that we spend on healthcare, and also the absolute growth in the spending on healthcare expenditures in our country for decades. So the problems are longstanding. There's a lot of underlying factors for that, but when I get elected, I will be immediately a vote for reversing the changes in the big, beautiful bill that affected Medicaid eligibility and therefore affected Medicaid coverage for as many as 11 million Americans around the country, including 30,000 people in this congressional district. And I'll also be a vote for continuation of the enhanced subsidies under the Affordable Care Act that debate over those caused the Republicans to shut the government down back last fall. Um, and that was, the enhanced subsidies affected the ability of about 15 to 20 million Americans to get healthcare coverage. And North Carolina is among the states which has the highest percentage of people who've been affected by the cuts to the Affordable Care Act enhanced subsidies. So I think those are two immediate things that need to happen to give people access to care. But there's longer term strategic reforms that need to happen, I believe, to make healthcare accessible and affordable to every single person, and affordable not just at the point of purchase for the individual, but also for the country, right? To find ways to restrain the overall growth of healthcare expenditures while still making healthcare coverage and therefore healthcare care services available and accessible to people wherever they may be. So I don't think that's something that can be done in like a snap of a finger, and we have to
No.
build on existing programs. But I think there's a lot that can be done over time if we work and build consensus around both the importance of addressing the financial issues, but also addressing the health issues for the health and financial security, stability, and of our country in the long term.
That makes a lot of sense. I think where you are is where a lot of Americans are. I think that a lot of people, whether it was under Democrats or Republicans, they view the healthcare system as broken, and they don't see either party, whether or not I think the Democratic Party was kind of stymied by Republicans in the filibuster and things like that, and they were trying, but the fact still is for the average American, they're like, I don't care why it's not in law. It's just I still can't afford healthcare. But I think that I was wondering, are there any other policies that you talk about often during your race, and the policy fixes that maybe people haven't heard, or just like things that you talk about in your race that people might not think of as on their daily basis of like the issues that matter?
You mean from a healthcare standpoint, or
Yeah,
just more broadly?
just in general.
Well, data centers are a huge issue of concern in this district. This is a rural and ex-urban district that looks like a reverse letter C going around Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And there is a lot of data center activity and some under construction, a number proposed. And people have a lot of concerns about that from a environmental standpoint, from a noise standpoint, from a water use and energy use standpoint. So I think that you can't have just local standards around data centers because if you have it in one county, then they'll go over to the next county,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
not you can't do that type of stuff.
you
Um,
have a race to the bottom. So there need to be national considerations and national reform to address how data centers will be developed, how and in a way that doesn't completely destroy the health and vitality and environment of local communities, right? Whether it's making sure that they have closed systems with their cooling so that they're not discharging heated water into
yeah,
waterways and therefore, affecting the local ecology, or whether they're not, super tall and therefore creating kind of visual pollution and kind of totally changing the character of landscapes, or making a lot of noise because these things operate all the time and they make a fair
yeah,
amount of noise. And then the power too, right? Because if they um, buy up the power from the local power company and everybody's rates go up because of that, or they negotiate preferential rates because they're a business and then everyone else has to pay more. Well, that ain't right. So we've got to do things around that. And then I think also that there are broader issues around AI and how it affects the
yes,
economy that demand consideration and potential reforms at the national level. Because if it's true that AI is going to come in and basically destroy local employment and local communities, then I think we have a we have an obligation and we have a right to have some say in how that happens, and
yeah,
that should be. I mean, the people have a say, not just some tech oligarchs who
yeah.
control incredibly vast resources.
It's kind of that's honestly the one issue that I have found between the AI and the data centers, like, that I have found honestly very disheartening that I've not seen the type of response that I would want, from definitely not the GOP, but frankly not the Democratic, Party either on this issue, at least not, like, there's been some members here and there across the ideological spectrum that have this view, but a lot of the people I've heard is like, "We need to figure out a way to, like, manage innovation," um allow the ambition to happen. We also need to figure out a way, like, it's here to stay. We just need to figure out a transition. And I'm like, yeah, like, yes, it's here to stay. That's true. But the transition, I feel like the term transition kind of means that, like, we need to help it kind of get situated in our system rather than radically reforming it and regulating it so it protects the working people. I think that, like, I'm supposed to the view that AI and stuff like that should have no say in hiring, firing decisions. And they also shouldn't have any say in deciding whether or not an insurance claim is approved or disapproved in the healthcare system. I don't think that that's, I think that there's certain things that AI should be banned from being used in to avoid discriminatory practices and other problematic things. I also think that um, obviously, there needs to be explicit, approval, from these, companies to get from the American people before they just, like, take, um, our whether it be artwork, whether it be just our conversations, whether it be, like, just our things that we provide them. And I think that if we do get that permission, we should get some sort of royalty like any other artist or, content creator. We should get royalties for that content that they're using to make the companies are making money, so why should we get a proceed of that like any other, person with a, product that sells it to someone else? And I think that those are some very easy, things that I think that most Americans would be okay with, that would still not prevent, AI from existing and being a important part of the society without it being abused and hurting Americans. And I just think that I wish that there was more response to that by our American politicians. Like, I don't know if you saw, but apparently in Utah this week they had a primary, and the person in charge of the Senate president in Utah lost his primary because he supported the I don't know if the data center got built or he was just pushing for the data center to be built. Well, he just lost now to, unfortunately, a right wing challenger um, because of that issue. And it shows that I think just both parties are just both parties, people, like the citizens in America just don't like data centers for different reasons, for different things. Obviously, Democrats probably came up with the environmental aspects of it. But, like, people don't like noise. They don't want they want people want clean air and they want clean water. Whether or not the environmental language is packaged in a way that makes it sound more liberal or not, it's people don't want they want to be able to breathe and they want to be able to drink water without having to worry about whether or not it's available. And I think that especially since, like, there's no clear, like, immediate grand need for a data center that outweighs the need for clean air and clean water and a quieter community. And also, I find that often they're like, "Oh, we can use this on, like, open land." Oftentimes, the open land that they're talking about, are rural areas on farmland that isn't actually open. It's just we can buy it out for cents on the dollar and then use that land for data center. It's very rarely like, oh, just land that's not being used by anyone for anything. It's usually like just it's rural America that's being harvested. Um,
A whole lot of
like,
land in America that's not owned by somebody, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's a fact. And I mean, and I think it's the we wouldn't want to get completely left in the dust by China around AI.
yes,
But I mean, I do think that, the impacts of AI are substantial for everyone on the planet, right? So when you think about where leaders in the past have had the foresight to deal with, say, nuclear arms in a way that is across borders, we try to negotiate with our rivals about how we'll manage that technology, which has the potential ability to dramatically adversely affect people's lives, right? And I think I would like to think that we would have the foresight and the wisdom to do the same thing with AI because the technology is very significant for the future, and we should be talking with our rivals and with our partners around the world about how to manage this to so we can gain the benefits, but we don't completely destroy
yeah.
society at this time.
Well, the thing is, if we look at how we handled social media back when that was being created like 20 years ago, we were so afraid of China and our rivals kind of getting ahead of us that we didn't actually put in any protections to protect
Yep.
Americans from the social media companies. And we've seen mental health radically get altered and damaged by the lack of regulations. And also, we've seen, at the very worst circumstances, a lot the increase in suicides due to bullying and other things on social media because we haven't put in the protections to protect people from social media. Doesn't mean that we can't have social media. It just means we're behind on social media from 20 years ago because we didn't because things when technology, specifically online technology, gets started, if you don't like kind of trap into that bottle, you really can't trap it because eventually it moves so fast that you can't keep track, especially when you have, frankly, like people that like Chuck Schumer still has a flip phone. And so I think that like it's really hard to so you combine those two issues of really moving so fast and also people don't really understand how the technology works. Um it just you don't have that the ability to like kind of put it back in the bottle if you don't do it like quickly.
It's out, it's out. I mean,
And
you can't put it back. You're right.
unfortunately, I think that we are in a T minus like 2 or 3 years before even probably less than that, before that happens with AI and data centers. And I think that we don't want and social media was, like, online, and that was, like, kinda more limited. AI, it's gonna be affecting a lot more aspects of our life. It's gonna be affecting the labor market. It's gonna be affecting job market and, clean air and clean water, like you said, and, like, data centers also. So I just think that, like, there's not it feels like and the importance of the issue is not being harnessed by either party right now, and it's like, "Oh, we'll get to it," like, it's an issue in 2026, but, like, I think honestly, because Republicans have made very clear that they don't care what AI and data centers do for the most part, like, except a few people here and there in the state legislature, like, they've been very clear with Trump, like, saying, like, "Let them run hog wild." If the
Yep.
Democratic Party candidates take a s take a stand on this, I think that is the election issue that people are sleeping on, that I think a lot of Americans actually will vote that I think if you're gonna vote on a single issue this year, I think it's gonna be data centers and AI because people are scared about that of all generations. And I think that people they feel what they don't know, but they also feel what they do know when they find out that this stuff is gonna hurt them later down the road or right now.
Yep.
And the thing is they're trying to, and these companies are trying to put all these data centers and all these AI advancements, in place before we really can know all the information, so we can't be against it as quickly because we don't really understand how it works, and then by that time, it's really hard to say, "Oh, you already built the data center in our community, you have to take it down," because that's gonna cost
Amazing how
not gonna happen. And the
they're
damage
massive too. The new
and
ones
the
that they're
damage
building
to
are
the fact
80 feet
and
tall.
the damage to the community has already been done, so it's not
Yeah.
going to happen, so I think that they're trying to rush it. So I think Democrats really need to and just the parties in general need to just get on top of that. Um, so are there any ways that, my followers can, help support your campaign?
Well, that's so nice, and it's so great to see so many people out there. Thank you all for joining. Those of you who are out there, we would love to have your help. You can go to paulbarringer.com and sign up to volunteer or make a donation. If you have a few extra bucks, we'd appreciate it. We're coming down to the end of the quarter, which is a very significant fundraising deadline for us. So any help would be awesome. You can also check us out online. We're at TikTok and we're on Instagram, Facebook, the whole thing. And so, but the main thing is if you would be interested in and willing to volunteer, we'd love to have your help. And that's at paulbarringer.com and look at the volunteer tab. So I appreciate that a lot, Eli.
Of course, I think that, there's a lot of Democrats running across the country, and I think that there's a lot of, open, availability to reach these seats that might maybe in other years are not as easy to win, and I think that this year there's a huge opening, and I think that obviously we need the right Democrats to run like you, and I think that but you also can't win if you don't have the resources and the help to
Yep.
reach all these voters, and I think that it's very important that we win as many seats as possible because obviously Republicans have been trying to warp things. They're trying to change the districts across, including North Carolina, um, and they are trying to who knows what they're going to do with the National Guard and ICE at polling
Yeah.
places,
Yeah.
and there's so many different things they're trying to do except have a winning platform to win in November because they know that they can't win without I wouldn't say cheating, but without kind of messing with things to make it harder for people to vote. Um, and I think that you can tell that they know they're scared because if they thought that their agenda was like, we got this, we have a good thing to run on, they'd run on it.
Yeah.
And
I
the fact that
agree.
they're going
That's
for
not what they're doing.
the fact they're
They gotta
going
change the
for
rules.
gerrymandering, they're going for um like he's now going after mail-in ballots. He's now saying that if you don't turn over the voter rolls, we won't help you win with election results. Like, it's
Yeah.
so many
Crazy.
different things. Now, some of that stuff will be taken down in the courts, but also he hasn't really taken a regard of respect towards the courts, and who knows what the Supreme Court would do if they had to rule on these things.
Yeah.
And
No, I
we
think
have
it's
to
true.
make sure that we have to take Trump's 2024 slogan. We have to make it too big to rig.
Yeah.
I think that we have to make the seats. We have to win as many seats as possible, so it's not like 2 or 3 seats away from over a majority 218. So, like, if a few districts get overturned because of his shenanigans, that we don't lose the majority. We want as
Couldn't
big a
agree more.
majority as possible, especially since we're gonna have to deal with extremes, unfortunately, in our party. And I think that having as many seats to avoid that being a thing that keeps us from making progress is gonna be helpful. And I think that we need to show a mandate to Trump, show, like, it's not just like, "Oh, you lost a few seats in a year that people always lose seats." Like, I wanna see preferably 30, 40 or more seats flipping, and it's, like, a massive thing because even after all the cheating that they're trying to do, they're still I want them to still lose by a lot because they'll be like, "Oh, we really lost. Imagine how bad it would have been if we didn't do all this gerrymandering all across the country."
It's true.
And
Yeah.
so I think that, first of all, thank you for running. I appreciate it. Um, takes a lot of, courage, and it takes, honestly I do I would never run for office because I don't wanna, like, I wanna help people run for office, but I could not enter that arena right now, and
You have plenty of
uh,
time to think about it. You don't have to make a decision right now. Just so you maybe later on you might change your mind. Because I wasn't thinking about doing this either, but I just couldn't take the news, like I said. So I think that what I would say to your group and to you is that we're going to win this election, um, and we have to win this election. But we're going to do it together, which is why I would love to have everyone's help and appreciate your input and advice all along the way, so we can flip this seat in November. So really appreciate the chance to be here with you
of
today,
course.
Eli. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you. It was great to have you, and I wish you the best of luck, and, yeah, go to paulbarringer.com and, donate or volunteer or both. Well,
Thank you.
do whatever you can afford to do and whatever you can have time to do.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And it was great to see you. We'll see you again soon, Eli. Thank you
Yes,
so
great.
much. All right. Bye, guys.